We are back for another start, stop, repeat. Welcome, welcome, welcome. As everybody joins in, let us know. Hit us in the chat with where you're calling in from. And today, as we get our first volunteer set up for the show, I wanted to use today's session to go a little bit deeper into conversations. So typically when we're running this, we've been really focused on that very beginning of the call, the start, right? So working on the opener, working on the opener, working on the opener. Today, I want to work towards the transition. And so for today's exercise, as guests come in, we're not going to start with, how we open, but we're going to move into how we transition into what it is that we do. So today's content is going to be a little bit different, but the same exact exercise. We're moving to that next gate, and we're going to focus on the meat and potato. Right? We've gotten past hello. I've given you permission. What are you going to say next? And I am excited for the session today. We'll go as always for about 45 minutes with some volunteers, and we'll leave hopefully some time open for Q&A at the end. As you guys join in, let us know again where you're calling in from, and we'll get the show started. So do we have our first guest ready to go? Welcome,
Hey, how's it going, Ryan?
Chris. How you doing today?
Doing great. How are you?
I am living the dream, brother.
That's
better
the dream.
and better, better and better. Where are you calling in from?
I'm actually calling in from Boston right now, and I'm actually getting a call right now. Hold on a second. There we go. Sorry about that.
No
yeah,
worries.
calling from the office in Boston, Cognism, as you guys can tell. So very exciting.
Go.
We have the UK team in today, so big day.
Amazing. So set the stage. You're calling. You are a. What's your role within Cognism?
I'm an enterprise SDR.
Enterprise SDR, perfect. And so for context for the conversations, we'll be role practicing here. Who is the individual we're going to be targeting?
Usually business directors of business development, head of sales, head of marketing, usually.
Okay, let's choose one. Which one's your favorite?
Let's do business development. I like them.
Okay, business development. So have you seen the show in the past, how this works, this start, stop, repeat concept?
I have not.
Okay, so what we're doing right now, this exercise is designed for live blitz sessions. If you're a part of a team that does blitzes, leadership and others can be in the same room. You're hearing calls, and then we're going to run this exercise, start, stop, repeat. The start, stop, repeat section is, hey, we're going to start a section of the conversation where we're getting kicked in the teeth. We're not really getting past where we need to go, right? So we're going to start that session right at that session, and we're going to repeat it over and over and over again in rapid succession, so we get really comfortable with the different types of scenarios that might come up when that happens. So in previous shows, we've started with the opener. Today, we're going to shift into the transition. So assume that we've already had our hello. This is you. And what I'm going to do to restart each of these in the rapid succession is I'm just going to say, what do you do? So you're going to pitch and the way you would as if I just said, hey, I'm sure, what's up? What do you do? Okay. Every time I say that, you're just going to restart right at the top of that section. And I'm going to throw different types of scenarios at you so you can get comfortable with it. We're going to stop. We'll talk through it, and then we'll do it again. Okay?
All right,
so,
awesome.
Make sense?
Yep.
So we're going to assume I already picked up the phone. I'm Ryan. I said, yeah, sure. What do you do? So, Chris, what do you do?
Yeah, great question, Ryan. So actually, Cognism is a sales intelligence platform that's going to be able to provide validated mobile contact data for your prospects. And the reason I targeted you directly is you are the head of business development. So you're kind of using that contact data as the end user more and more every day. So if I had a quick question for you, Ryan, when you guys don't have that best contact data or it's just not up to date, how do you guys get around that?
Hey, Chris, what do you do?
Yeah, Ryan, great question. So Cognism is actually a sales intelligence platform. We're going to be able to provide validated mobile contact data for your prospects. With everyone working from home and changing jobs so much due to quarantine and COVID, we've definitely noticed.
Yeah, we don't work from home.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. Then I'm glad to hear that. Office. I'm actually a big fan of the Office too. How do you feel about it?
It's okay. So yeah. So I don't know. I don't know. We don't. I think we have. Are you guys like a Zoom info?
Yeah, we're actually in the same space as Zoom Info. A little different than Zoom Info. Is actually that.
Hey Chris, what do we do?
Yeah, no problem. Great question, Ryan. So Cognism is actually a sales intelligence platform, kind of the same sphere as Zoom, but we actually differ because we have 2 times more mobile data, and we're actually hand validating all that contact data as well. Are you guys leveraging any contact providers out there?
Hey Chris, what do you do?
Hey Ryan, great question again. So Cognism is actually a sales intelligence platform. We're going to be able to provide you validated mobile contact data for your prospects. With everyone working from home, changing jobs, definitely notice a drop off in direct dials and definitely an increase in those mobile numbers. And here at Cognism, we actually have 2 times more mobile numbers. So Ryan, if I could ask you a question, are you guys currently leveraging any data providers right now?
We'll stop there. How'd that feel?
Felt so good. Very fast paced. Kind of liked it.
Yeah, this is your first time seeing it, but usually we start with the opener. And it's like, hey, you're getting comfortable in the call. We're making a transition today into the value pitch, right? You're on stage now. You have your shot on goal. What are we going to say?
Right.
So how did you feel with the presentation side of it? Just the conversation.
Yeah, definitely. So more at the end, I felt like I could definitely put more info in with less words, instead of getting all wordy at the first couple runs I did. So yeah, I feel like that was definitely helpful. You just got to add value. As you said, it's like the shot on goal. You can't shoot a slow puck. You actually got to wind up and hit it right. So that was definitely helpful in that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the thing that I noticed is that each time you said something a little bit different, and what will help you be more successful on that shot is to have a consistent shot, right? So um, if I get to this section, I'm getting through a gate. Permission-based opener, whatever you're going to say, that should also be consistent, right? So you can measure. But okay, what do you do when you hear those magic words? What do you do? What am I going to say? Having that, what do you do consistent for the persona you want to target is going to help you start to measure if what you're saying is why you're not moving to the next phase, or is it you, right? And so words being consistent are going to be super important. It's about consistency and confidence more than a lot of any other things. But if you're talking to this head of biz dev, or I think that's what you mentioned was the persona that you like the most, right? You're talking to that person and they're constantly shutting you down when you use the work from home thing. Well, then maybe you don't use the work from home thing. You might use something different. But if it's one time work from home, next time all this mobile data, next time it's something different, what is it? Is it, because you're not consistent with it, right? The other value of being consistent when you run your message is the first time I approach this director of biz dev and I run that consistent pitch, which is, let's use the work from home example, and I get shut down, I can make note. Hey, my first one, the work from home, didn't like it. That lead's not dead. I'm going to follow up again and get past. I'm going to use something different. Next time I'll lead with mobile, right? Got shot down again. Okay, a couple more weeks. I'll lead with something else. And so this is giving you an opportunity to not only measure and be consistent to get through more gates the first time, but over time, you'll be able to actually get through to more of those people that you desire to get in front of, right? And this will be really important for anyone that's listening in with a smaller addressable market. And I'm not sure what your territory looks like, Chris, but that'll give you an opportunity to be able to kind of continue to reheat or remarket to the same leads without having to go and continue to find more.
Yep.
Make sense?
Yep, totally.
Let's try that again with a consistent message this time. I'm going to try to throw you off a little bit. Remember, I'm not asking you to be a robot and not adjust after I say, what do you do? But the what do you do to start, that should be consistent each time. I might throw different variations after the fact, but what do you do? Try to keep it consistent and see how it feels. Okay.
Yep.
Hey, Chris, what do you do?
Hey, Ryan, great question. So Cognism is a sales intelligence platform that's going to be able to provide validated mobile contact data for your prospects. kind of like
Hmm.
a Zoom Info, but a little different than Zoom Info. We actually prioritize mobiles, so we have 2 times more mobiles, and we're actually hand validating those as well. So Ryan, if I could ask you a question, do you guys leverage any contact providers?
Hey, Chris, what do you do?
Hey Ryan, great question. So Cognism is a sales intelligence platform that's going to be able to provide validated mobile contact data for your
We
prospects.
don't call mobile, man. You call mobile? No, we don't do that.
Yeah, I mean, are you guys more prioritizing the direct dials then?
Yeah, I just think it's not nice to call mobile data.
Yeah, no, totally get that. It is a little intrusive sometimes, but we have noticed that with direct dials, everyone working from home, kind of changing jobs, the connections definitely have dropped off. But totally understand you don't call mobiles. Are you guys using a data provider right now?
Hey, Chris, what do you do?
Hey Ryan, so Cognism is actually a sales intelligence platform that's going to be able to provide validated mobile contact data for your prospects. In the same space as Zoom Info, but more different than that, we actually prioritize mobiles
Yeah,
and have
yeah,
two
we're already
times.
using we're already using Zoom Info. I think
Using Zoom Info? That's awesome. Great to hear. Actually, a lot of our customers leverage Zoom Info, leverage us with Zoom Info, because what they've noticed that Zoom Info doesn't have that many mobile numbers, and they're not really refreshing that data that often.
Hey, Chris, what do you do?
Hey, Ryan, great question again. So Cognism is a sales intelligence platform that's going to be able to provide validated mobile contact data for your prospects, kind of in the same space as Zoom Info, but a little different than that.
All right, let's stop there.
Mhm.
How'd that feel this time around?
Uh, Definitely better. I like sticking to the same consistency. Because if you keep saying it, I felt more confident each time. So that was definitely good. Um, no mobiles, always we hear that pretty often, so that's always a tough one to hear, but it was good. I felt
Yeah,
pretty
the
good.
purpose, I'm just trying to throw you off a little bit and
Yeah.
then restart you to make sure you stay on track, right?
Yep.
So each time I might say something after the fact, but being able to present what I do consistently, one, it's going to build confidence, and then two, it's going to help you understand, am I so if I hit on it, great. If I don't, okay, well, let's say I don't call mobile. So now I gathered some information. You did a
Hmm.
great job of also getting, well, what are you doing for contact information? You call in direct. So you still went back to your talk track, and it looks like the important things you're looking for are, are they already using a tool? Maybe something like Zoom Info. So you're triggering on that. It's a great
Hmm.
question. And if you're documenting that information, it's helping you gather the insight you need. Even if I say no today, I now have more information when I follow up to get further in the conversation the next time. So great work today, man. That was a really good job and adjustments made. So if you go take that to heart and actually write down like you're like what you're consistent and confident with and use it over time, you will see a lift in your ability to get through to more completions. So
Yeah.
good work, man. Thanks for
Awesome.
being a
Thanks,
volunteer
Ryan.
today.
Yeah, no problem.
All the best.
All right.
What do we got next? Do we have another volunteer? Yeah, volunteer. I'm being friendly today. Good.
Can you hear me?
Where are we calling in from?
I'm calling from Helsinki.
Helsinki. All right. And how do you say your name? I don't want to butcher that. Is that
Thi.
Tui?
Yeah.
Tui, welcome to the show. To set some context for folks for the session, what's your role as a rep?
I'm a sales manager, but I
You're a sales.
do like I take care of the whole sales pipeline from SDR to closing and all that stuff.
Fantastic. So, you're a sales manager, and who do you typically sell to? Who's the audience that you're trying to call into?
So we sell to publishers, which are those websites that you see they are ads selling. So let's say Daily Mail would be one example. So we target the ad operations specialist or yield optimization specialist in those publishers.
Okay, perfect. So, did you listen in on the last one today? We're going to move into what do we do. So we're going to assume I'm an ad publisher or an optimization specialist. I am the person you want to talk to. You introduce yourself, ask for some time. I said, sure. What do you do? And I'm going to keep repeating that. We'll stop, get a little bit of feedback. We'll do it again. So, hey, Tui, what do you do?
Thanks for asking, and thank you for giving me the time. So we actually help publishers simplify ad operations so their specialists can have more resources and time to focus on optimization and making more revenue. How are you guys handling ad operations at the moment?
Hey, Tui, what do you do?
Thank you for your time. We help publishers simplify ad operations so your specialist can focus more on cultivating revenue and have less manual tasks.
Tui, what do you do?
Thank you for your question and thank you for giving me the time. We help publishers simplify the ad operations so your specialist can have more time and resources to focus on revenue cultivation and less manual work. May I ask, how are you guys doing it at the moment?
Yeah, I think we outsource it to an agency.
All right. So how do you feel about that in terms of control? Because, with outsourcing, you don't actually have 100% control of your inventory.
Hey, what do you do?
Thank you for your question and thank you for giving me the time. We help publishers simplify ad operations so your specialists can have more resources and time to focus on yield optimization and revenue cultivation. May I ask, how are you guys making sure that you are balancing the resources that goes into operations and revenue at the moment?
All right, let's stop right there. How'd that feel?
A little bit of pumping in the heart.
When's the last time you were able to pitch 4 times in a row that quickly, right? Yeah, sure. I have time. What do you do?
Yeah, it's super rare.
So I like the fact that you started nearly all of them with that same consistent, we simplify ad operations, we simplify ad operations, we simplify ad operations. I heard that with some consistency. There was some other portions in there where you were kind of changing up using the words yield maybe 1 or 2 times. Cultivating came out a few times, but it wasn't consistent throughout. So what we'll want to do until I interrupt you with like something I hit on, which will happen in the call, is try to keep that whole piece consistent, right? So um, again, what that will help us do is understand when I say this, X percentage of this audience tends to respond in these ways, right? And in every single conversation, we're trying to get to what I call a completion. This is from a book way back in the 80s. And so a completion is different than what everyone else goes after, which is I need meetings, I need meetings, I need meetings. Meetings are great. That's one completion. But a completion means that I got through to the person, they gave me permission to pitch, they heard what I had to say, and we have a mutually agreed next action, or in my mind, I have a next action on should I follow up or not. That follow up could be a yes, we did schedule a meeting. It could be a no, like no, I'm not interested because, right? Could be a not now. Hey, that's interesting, follow up, or something like that, or not me. Hey, that's not me, hang up, or hey, that's not me, and you get a referral. So we're really looking for these 4 completions. And in order for us to consistently measure, are we targeting the right people? Are we saying the right things? We want to keep that message consistent so that we can understand, is it me or is it the list or the message? Make sense?
Yeah.
So let's try that one more time with as consistent as possible on what you do. And again, I'll throw some curveballs in there just to kind of see when we restart if you stay consistent and see how it feels this time around. So hey, Tui, what do you do?
Thank you for your question and thank you for giving me the time. We simplify ad operations for publishers so they can have more resources to focus on revenue cultivation and yield optimization.
How do you do that?
So we automate a lot of manual tasks that your ad operations might be doing right now. Let's say revenue reporting, analytics. We can centralize all of the data automatically, and most of the setup will be done through a UI with toggles and switches, which saves a lot of time from, coding.
Hey, Tui, what do you do?
Thank you for your time and thank you for the question. We help publishers simplify ad operations so you have more resources to focus on revenue cultivation and yield optimization. May I ask, how are you guys balancing the resources going to ad operations and revenue at the moment.
Hey, Tui, what do you do?
Thank you for your time and thank you for your question. We help publishers simplify ad operations so you can have more resources to focus on revenue cultivation and yield optimization. May I ask how are you guys doing it at the same at the moment?
Yeah, we do that in house. So you're like a
Right.
tool or your service? Like, how do you do that?
Right. So if you are doing it in-house, I'm sure that you guys are facing some problems with the manual task. So basically, we automate most of the manual tasks that ad operations people have to go through, like reporting, analytics. So we centralize all of the data, and then we also give you a UI so you can manage your pre-bid from like a simple toggles and switches.
Tui, what do you do?
Thank you for your time and thank you for your question. We help publishers simplify ad operations so you guys have more time and resources to invest in revenue cultivation and yield optimization. May I ask how you guys are doing it at the moment?
Perfect. So we'll stop there. How'd that feel this time around?
I think I'm still a little bit like, in my head of like, okay, what to say next. But I think
Do you have a script that you've written down somewhere?
Yeah, like usually we have a script, but because like it's so different, like every time the person can give us like some different technical information, like how they are doing things. So we only have like, okay, you say the value that you sell, and then depending on how they are doing things, because we kind of like know it before calling already, then you like go with the values.
Absolutely. So when we think about the message, right, we can still think of like our conversation like a funnel, just like a sales funnel might be, right? So like, you're gonna have these gates or stages in the conversation. And so like generally you can break it down to like an intro. What we're getting in here is like the purpose of the reason. I don't know if I can spell right, purpose/reason. This would then be like the question, like this is where you're getting into, right? Which is good. You're transitioning into the question. That might happen. Like you might have a question or an offer, and then you're going to have like a call to action. So you want to gate and stage the conversation like you're painting roads on a roadway to try to direct the conversation. But obviously, there's lots of noise in here, right? Lots of different directions this could go based on whatever someone says. If I intro, I could say, sure, give me some time. I could say, no, I'm busy. I could say, F you. I could say all sorts of stuff, right? So you want to have, you would want to be able to try to use phraseology that's consistent and with confidence so that you can try to think about, if I say this, there's only a handful of potential responses. I'm trying to elicit and control the certain amount of responses so that this doesn't get out of control. And so when you get through each of these gates, by writing down what you're going to say once you've passed that gate, you can control only a handful of potential answers. Right? And that's done through questioning as well as the phraseology that you're using. The words that you're using can help elicit certain types of responses that give you more control over getting to that next gate, right? So why we do this is we want to practice. Okay, here's the intro. We've done this in the previous episodes. If I have a consistent intro and I'm doing it in the right way, there's only been a couple ways that these people are going to move forward. They're either going to say, sure, they're going to give me time. They're going to say, no, right? And that could come in two forms. No, without a whole lot, like go F yourself, some mean stuff, which doesn't happen that often, but it could happen. And then, or they could say like, not now, like, hey, I'm busy, try me back or whatever, right? So in the intro, there's really only like three things if we do it the right way. Then when we get into the purpose of the reason, where we're at right now is like, hey, thank you for your time, appreciate it. This is what we do. And then by you asking a question, unless you hit on something specific with like the words you're using, which might elicit one type of response, like, hey, we don't do that or something like that. They're kind of trying to DQ you. that question now allows you to control getting to the next gate, right? So it's really important to write down those words so you actually know. Like, and of course, conversations are conversations. Be a human and get out of those when it makes sense. But by controlling those gates, you now have the ability to elicit only a handful of certain types of potential responses, and then you can write those down. So if they say this, then I might say this. If they say this, then I might say that. And now you're getting a lot more control of that conversation, which will allow you to measure based on this system, where are we getting in these gates? And then what are the common responses, the illicit responses that I'm getting that are not allowing me to move forward? And if I'm not moving forward, then I should think about either changing up that message because it's not working, or perhaps it's the wrong people. Like, the message is right, I'm saying the right things, but it's like, no, 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 not me, not now. Okay, well, I should probably go after the other people, right? So now I have a really, really controlled system to help me measure those things. Make sense?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
I would try to. I know so many people are against scripts, right? They're so against it. They're like, well, there's so many variations. Well, there's a lot of variations in certain conversations if you don't control it. But the power of a cold call is that you can control that scenario to really bucket it into only a handful of elicited responses. So if you structure your call in the right way, there's only so many ways it can go. And if you document those all and continues to update it over time, well, then you'll be really, really prepared for, if they say this, then they say that. If they say this, then I say that. And then you do these practices like this, and you're going to get really, really, really confident with delivering that consistent message. And that's where you're going to see your results start to tick up and to the right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So,
Yeah.
So thank you so much for being a volunteer today. And let me know if you take this stuff into heart and see any results. We'd love to hear results from people that put this into practice. Thanks for being part. Cheers. Who do we got next? Did I scare everyone off? I thought I was being nice today. So I don't know if we have any more volunteers. If not, we can always open up into Q&A as well. Make sure to tap those into the box here, and we can make sure to get to the answers there. I might have time for one more volunteer. And if we don't have a volunteer, we can definitely open up to open Q&A here. Maybe I need to put on some intermission music as well. All right, so I can try to elicit some questions to the audience too. This idea of a kind of conversation funnel and getting through gates is really the backbone of everything that we cover here, because one of the biggest challenges that I see with cold callers is that they are not controlling the conversation. And the beautiful part about a cold call is that as a cold caller, you have a lot more control of a situation than in any other stage of the sales process. And what I mean by that is, when you have an initial connect with somebody that you did a good job of researching and targeting, you have a lot more information at your fingertips as to, why you're calling, the benefit of what you can provide in that call. The list goes on and on and on. The other person, if it's a cold call, has none of that information. And so because of that, you are already in this position of being one up. If you flail and are inconsistent and not providing a structure that keeps you in the zone, in the funnel, that's on you. But if you have a strong system and process that can control that conversation, cold calling becomes a lot easier. And again, it's really just a numbers game. I know a lot of people don't like to hear that, but this is all math. Only a certain percentage of your people, even if you have a perfect list in your mind with a perfect message in your mind, are going to move forward. And some of that has nothing to do with the message or the list. It could also be the personality that you used when you delivered it. So there's so many variables here, and having a consistent message with this framework in mind will help you measure and with that measurement, you can start to make the necessary adjustments around those key things: list, message, rep, who you be. Here's our first question coming in. So I find it really difficult to diffuse negativity when the customer is really cold and overpowering at the beginning of the phone call. Yeah, that's a great question. So, uh, obviously, if somebody is upset and being pretty negative to start a cold call, that might be a signal that it's a very, very bad time to make like to do anything, right? Um, you don't know anything about them at that time, so there's not much you could do to diffuse a situation you have no insight on. And uh, one of the tricks that I try to preach and repeat over and over and over again is that if nothing else, what you've learned when somebody has picked up your cold call for the first time, mean or not mean, angry or not angry, whatever it might be, you've learned that they are a phone picker upper. Somebody who picks up the phone tends to pick up the phone again and again and again. Someone who doesn't likely won't. And so, Sarah, if this is somebody that you've called for the very first time and they're pretty negative, my recommendation would say something like this: Hey, it sounds like I might have caught you at the worst possible time. I'll go ahead and try at a later time and just exit the call. You don't have to continue, just hang up the phone and call them back later and see if that individual, him or her, is not as negative the next time around. You could have caught them at the literally worst possible time. And when you follow up, that's the same message. Hey, person, whatever they were, we spoke the other day. It sounded like I caught you at the worst possible time. Do you mind if I take, however you want to, do you mind if I take a half a minute to share exactly why I called? You let me know if this is relevant. If they're still nasty at that point, well, this is a nasty person. Then you got to ask yourself, um, is a nasty person someone you want to do business with or not? Not not everybody is worth calling. Not everybody is worth doing business with. And again, if you catch them two times in a row and they're nasty two times in a row, that the odds of that is pretty bad. But you can exit the call again. And I always like to strike three, you're out. So if I get somebody who's super nasty three times in a row, there's a good chance that they're either just a nasty person or maybe they're dealing with a lot of things that are not a good time. And if it's a high value target, you can always revisit that person at some point in the future, call back in the next quarter or something. But if you have a bigger TAM, me personally, my approach is I just don't like to do business with people that I don't feel comfortable doing business with. And if there's a mismatch on personality, I just go on to the next prospect. Hopefully that's helpful. Have you found that building a buyer persona before sending a mail or calling actually helps? Also, unrelated, what is the best way to reveal pain points that link to the offering over the phone? All right, so there's two kind of questions here. So building a buyer persona before sending or calling actually helps. I mean, clearly, before you start any type of outbound marketing, it's a really good idea to have an idea of who you're going to be marketing to, and so it's very helpful to understand the individuals on your list, and you're going to have a lot more success if it's one list, one message. So the list or persona, as you're saying here, should be mapped to one list, one message. So when you're going through the buyer persona exercise, or at least messaging for that list, which would be kind of the same thing, you'd want to start thinking through, you know, the jobs to be done framework is a great one to look it up if or to leverage. If you don't know that, look it up. Josh Braun talks about it a lot. Uh, the jobs to be done, you could probably Google it. Uh, the person on the list is doing work today, and if you understand what they're trying to accomplish, you really understand their day in the life, what gets them promoted, what might get them fired, um, what other opportunities are they not aware of. If you understand these things and you can position your message around those, you're going to have a lot more success. So it's absolutely beneficial to understand who you're selling to and why they might care, centered around the jobs to be done in a B2B context. Second question here. What is the best way to reveal pain points that link to your offering? Again, this is kind of tangential here, but you got to understand the roles and the responsibilities of the individuals at the organizations. You also have to understand the company. So in Outbound Sales No Fluff, my book, wrote several years ago, we talk about this. The tagline is target companies sell to people. So the first thing you want to do is make sure that the company itself is going to be a good fit client. They meet the criteria that is qualified for somebody to do business with. Lots of reasons for that, and we don't need to get into that, but in a lot of detail. But the company itself needs to be qualified. Now, within the company, there are people who are trying to get work done that your product or service helps in some way, right? It's going to help them do it at a lower cost. It's going to help them do it with, drive more revenue, or it's going to eliminate risk, or whatever it might be. And so understanding those things is crucial from your research in the first point. And then obviously you're just going to message around that, right? You're working with companies like them who have these problems, and you open up discussion in that way. We've shared some of those frameworks in the past. If you haven't seen some of those shows, I highly recommend taking a look at some of the frameworks that are used from the previous cold calling shows with like Greg Woodward, Jason Bay. He's got some stuff around like priority drops. Greg Woodward has some stuff around relevant clarity, and Josh Braun, jobs to be done. So I'd take a look at all those resources. Great questions. Keep them coming through. So Fred, double Fred squared. What do you do? What do you say to a prospect who says, "Can you send me an email on the subject?" Well, it depends on when they say that. Okay, so if I'm calling you Fred, and I say, "Hey, Fred, this is Ryan with Cognism. Haven't spoken before. It's the first time I reached you. Do you mind if I take a half a minute to explain why I was calling?" And at that moment, you say, "Can you just send me an email on the subject?" That's going to be very different than if I get that when you said, "Sure, Ryan, what's up?" And I say, "Hey, Ryan, I'm calling with Cognism. I use the pitch. I ask some questions. I then go into a call to action, and I say, hey, based on what we shared today, it sounds like there might be some fit here, but would you be opposed to finding some time, maybe next Tuesday or Wednesday, for a introduction conversation with one of our, product experts?" And you say, "No, can you just send me some information on the subject?" So context matters. If it's in the beginning, then I'm going to try to get through. I'm going to use a very simple line. "Hey, that's not a problem at all. I don't know, Cognism, have you heard of us at all? Are you familiar with us?" They're going to respond in some ways. No, again, just send me some information. You're going to respond with something like, "Hey, just to make sure this is relevant," and you're going to try to ask some more questions to make sure that it's relevant to send some information. You haven't gotten past hello, and you're going to want to try to dive deeper into what they're looking for. If, of course, you've already gone through all of this and somebody asks for that, then I'm probably going to say, "That's not a problem at all. What would you like to see based on what we covered? I actually have some resources. Do you prefer that in text or video?" Like, I'm going to make sure I get them what they're looking for. And then I'm going to say, "By the way, once I get this to you, I'm sure you're going to have some more questions, and I'm going to go and ask for the meeting again." So I'm going to ask, again, context matters of where it comes from. I'm going to clarify what they need in either case, but if it's early on, I'm going to still try to make sure that it's even them and it's even relevant before I spend any time sending information. And if it's through later in the conversation, I'm going to make sure that they get what they need, and I'm still going to ask for the meeting. Next question. Hey, look at that. We got another volunteer. Justin.
How's it going, Ryan? Thank you.
Where are you calling in from?
Calling in from Winnipeg.
Winnipeg. Is it cold up there right now, or not yet?
You know what? This winter has actually been really nice. We don't even have snow yet. Normally we got a ton of snow, so.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing in terms of like everything else, but yeah, for you, weather's nice. That's great. So set some context for the role practice here. What's your role?
Business development rep.
Fantastic. And who do you tend to target for the conversation we'll be having? Who's the
So
person
we'll
that
be
will be on the other side of
targeting health and safety directors in the mining industry.
Health and safety in the mining. Okay, fantastic. So I'm not sure if you heard earlier on, but we're going to move right into, what do you do? So Justin, what do you do when you hear that? You're just going to get right into your pitch, and we'll start, stop, repeat. Justin, what do you do?
Great question. So BitSpace is a development company in Canada that helps mining operations use new technologies to improve their current training process. Typically, when I'm talking to safety specialists such as yourself, they're content with how their employees are being trained, but they share frustration with how often they need to be retrained. Others are concerned with how long the training takes. And lastly, some specialists have shared that they are anxious with how much time, money, and resources go into training their employees. Ryan, I don't suppose any of those issues are relevant to you.
Hey, Justin, what do you guys do?
So BitSpace is a development company in Canada that helps mining operations use new technologies to improve their training process. Typically, when I'm talking to safety specialists such as yourself, they're content with how their employees are being trained, but they share frustration with how often they need to be retrained. And others are concerned with how long the training takes. And lastly, some specialists have shared that they are anxious with how much time, money, and resources.
Hey, Justin, what do you guys do?
So BitSpace is a development company in Canada that helps mining operations use new technologies to improve their training process. Typically, when I'm talking to safety specialists such as yourself, they're content with how their employees are being trained, but they share frustration.
No, our employees are trained pretty well.
Appreciate that. Makes perfect sense. Have you looked into any kind of immersive technology before?
What's immersive technology? That's a big word.
Yeah, so that kind of breaks down virtual reality, augmented reality, machine learning, all these different kinds of capabilities that are being used in the mining industry.
Hey, Justin, what do you do?
BitSpace is a development company in Canada that helps mining operations use new technologies to improve their training process. Typically, when I'm talking to safety specialists such as yourself, they're content with how their employees are being trained, but they share frustration with how often they need to be retrained. Others are concerned with how long their training takes. And lastly, some specialists have shared that they are anxious with how much time, money.
All right, let's stop right there, Justin.
Yeah.
How'd that feel?
Felt okay.
Great. What I love about what you've done so far is that you clearly are being consistent with your message, and you deliver it without hesitance. So you've done this a few times. The command of the message is there. You know what you're what you're saying on the script. Did you guys get that? Is that like a Sandler? It's like a Sandler training right there. Do you guys do Sandler? Is that where that's coming from?
I've been just following a lot of Sandler content.
Okay. That's good. So the one thing that happens when you run that type of message is it can get a little bit drawn out, right? As you start to go through, here's the couple things that we have, and I'll stop there. I don't suppose any of those are going to be something you're dealing with. That works really, really well when you are right on track with right person, right? But can get you into a trap if it's like, oh no, we're good. Like they hit on one of them, like I did earlier. Like, hey, we're good with training. And so making sure that you have a way to deviate back besides going into like product questions, because you're like going into like immersive technologies and stuff like that. I was like, I don't even know what this is about anymore. Like you talked about training and now you're talking about this. Try to revisit with like some questions. It's like, oh yeah, that's not a problem. What would be a question to get you back into those other, problem / pain point bullets that you're running through to try to see if something else hits, if that makes any sense, right? Because you're getting gated and it's like, okay, didn't hit here. How do I get back to something else versus like trying to battle into something that I have no context on. I have no idea what you are. The other piece of feedback I have just on the message itself too is there a reason why you're saying in Canada? Are you selling locally and these are only mining operations in Canada and that's why you're trying to make a point, or what's the intent there?
So the intent there is just trying to create some kind of familiarity with them, some kind of I guess you could say rapport, since we're both in Canada, because we're calling into Canadian companies right now.
Okay. So whenever we're thinking about our messaging, especially for the cold call, we want to choose our words as many as like we want to be very, very specific with our words. And this is why it's important to have your script, and it's clear that you have yours. But if there's any words that are not necessary, it may be here, right? It may be like, because you're trying to build some familiarity. Like they're in Canada, we're in Canada, just trying to set the context. Hey, we're also in Canada. But for the most part, if it doesn't matter, like who gives a shit if you're in Canada? Like, doesn't matter. You would want to get rid of it. So just kind of think through the words that you're choosing. We only have so many words because we only have so much time, and those words matter. So just something to think through there. I'm not sure. I'm not hearing your calls. If it's helpful, obviously keep it. But if it's not, you'd want to cut it. It's like if you watch the movie Ocean's 11, Brad Pitt's talking to I can't remember which one it was, but he's like, hey, don't use 4 words or don't use 7 when 4 will do. Right. So same concept. So
Nice.
let's try it again. I'll throw a couple more curveballs at you, and but great job, man. That was really good. I'm just trying to provide some takeaways, but really good delivery.
Appreciate it.
Sure, Justin. Yeah, I have some time. What do you do? What do you do? What do you guys do?
So BitSpace is a development company that helps mining operations use new technologies to improve their training process. Typically, when I'm talking to safety specialists such as yourself, they're content with how their employees are being trained, but they share frustration with how often they need to be retrained. Others are concerned with how long the training.
I feel that all the time. These guys don't keep any of the training in.
Yeah, appreciate that insight. Do you mind telling me a little bit more about that?
Hey, Justin, that's not a problem. What do you guys do?
BitSpace is a development company that helps mining operations use new technologies to improve their training process. Typically, when I'm talking to safety specialists such as yourself, they're content with how their employees are being trained, but they share frustration with how often they need to be retrained. Others are concerned with how long the training takes. And lastly, some specialists have shared that they are anxious with how much time, money, and resources go into training their employees. Ryan, I don't suppose any of those issues
you guys like a training company? What do you guys do exactly?
Yeah, great question. So we develop technology to help, essentially to help with the training of employees. Do you currently have something like that?
I've got like 30 seconds, Justin. What do you do?
BitSpace is a development company that helps mining operations use new technologies to improve their training process. Typically, when I'm talking to safety specialists such as yourself, they're content with how their employees are being trained, but they share frustration with how often they need to be retrained. And others are concerned with how long the training takes. And lastly, some specialists have shared that they are anxious with how much time, money, and resources go into training their employees. I'm going to stop there, Ryan. I don't suppose any of those issues are relevant to you.
All right, we'll stop again. How'd that feel this time?
Felt good.
Yeah, I mean, you're very consistent with your message. I'm just trying to think of like that first phase where you're like, we're a bidding company in Canada. And then you go into, I'm speaking with folks like that. When you explain that, I don't know, I don't have a lot of context around what that means, but is there an opportunity to set a little bit more context? Again, Greg, what would we call this, like relevant clarity? And there's other terminology for this, but like just trying to get a little bit more insight around, okay, where am I at? Because a lot of this is around training, and then, but I asked I'm asking, what do you do, or like, how does it work? You're talking about these pains, but you're not getting into like, there's no context around that. So I like that if most people respond like, oh yeah, so like, what is this, like a service, or is this like a technology? If you're getting that, that's great. Your conversation is probably going in the right direction. But if you're getting hit with like, yeah, I don't know, man, no, we're good, or like, I don't, then maybe there's an opportunity to set a little bit of clarity there. Again, I don't have the calls. Like, I'm not sure how people are responding here, but just something to think about. Otherwise, from a structure perspective, phenomenal job, man. Like consistency, clarity, pace, all that stuff is good. I'm just trying to find ways to think about giving you a little bit of it, little things to think about if you're hitting a wall in your gates. But great work today. Thanks for being
man. Appreciate
on the
it.
show.
Appreciate all
absolutely.
this.
Yeah. Any other questions for me before we jump? Nope. All right. We got 10 minutes left. We can keep the Q&A going. Or if we have another volunteer, probably just leave it for Q&A at this stage with the time, but happy to do another one as well. Get a lot of people who say, send it over email, and then when I call back to follow up, they were all calls. Well, so when you're calling and following up, are you like leaving voicemails and sequencing them, or are you calling? When it comes to like they called right after they sent it? It's like the next day. There's again some context here. You have to go all the way back to when they asked for that send as well. So if somebody's like, yeah, just send me some information, and you didn't really get through and you didn't get clarity, um, there's a good chance they might be blocking you because it was a brush off, and they're going to say, yep, that's an annoying salesperson, never pick up that line again. Especially if it was a mobile number, they're just going to block you in their context. If it was someone that truly requested the information and they're ghosting you, I would be curious to understand the context. There's just so much missed context here. But one thing that you can do is when you're following up, let it sit for a couple of weeks and reheat that. People tend to again pick up the phone. They pick up the phone again and again. And if your number got blocked, the way you can test this is to use another phone number. So if you have a desk phone for your business and you want to test this, wait a couple weeks and call from your mobile phone, your own personal mobile phone. If they pick up again, there's a good chance they're ghosting you because whatever you said was not relevant and they don't have the heart to say no. There's not anything you can say to try to keep people on the phone if they're not interested in talking to you. So context matters a lot. Sometimes people want information because they're generally interested and you should give them the information. Sometimes people say, send me information to get you off the phone and then to ignore you. You need to have the actual situational awareness to understand what's what and who's who, so that you're not wasting your time, one, sending information that's never going to get read, or two, trying to follow up with information with somebody who's already blocked you. So I don't have enough to answer that question fully, but there's not a lot you can say outside of using the frameworks we had, trying to get through the gates, knowing where you're at in the conversation to understand if they've heard you or not. And again, you should be optimizing for this concept of a completion. So they need to hear you, they understand what it is that you are calling about. It needs to be relevant. There needs to be a future next action. So hopefully that's helpful. Recommended times of the day that are best suitable for outbound calling. I find Mondays are difficult. Post 4 p.m., 8 a.m., or mostly send me an email. You guys are getting a lot of email sends. I would try to figure out what you're saying in your calls, because it's not very clear as to why you might be calling, especially if those emails are going nowhere. But time of day to call, there is some fluctuation. Depending on uh, if you want to add like a couple basis points on pickups. But generally speaking, the best time to call is right now. People who pick up tend to pick up. That's what my data shows on the millions of contacts and millions of dials we've now done with phone ready leads. So people who pick up tend to pick up. People who don't. There definitely is a variance in beginning of the week, end of the week, mornings versus afternoons. There is some psychology around trying to get to people before the afternoon. There's actually brain chemistry and science that says that you can only make so many decisions in a day before you stop making decisions. And so later in the day, while you might get a higher pickup rate, it's probably not the best time to be having a conversation. I personally like to call in the 9 to 11 a.m. windows if I'm time blocking based on time zone. That's when I would be calling. So if I have in the United States territory across the US, then I can call for lots of hours throughout the day. I'm not restricted just for two. I would start 9 to 11 Eastern and then work my way across the states, moving into Central, Mountain, Pacific. But if you're restricted to one specific time zone and you only are calling for a couple hours a day, 9 to 11 is my preferred time, but that's just me. The best time to call is now. Hopefully that's helpful. We got 4 minutes left. We're going to hammer out one or two more questions. Appreciate everybody's engagement on the show today. All right. I don't know if we have any more questions. Got a couple more minutes before the show is going to end. So if you have any burning questions, get them in. Otherwise, appreciate everybody's willingness to volunteer on the show. Hope you're getting some value of the show. I do have a request for those who have tuned in and have watched the show and gotten some value out of this. If you like this and you get value from this show, feel free to share. There's all the on-demand shows with your audience. Share it with one person you know. One person who can benefit from this. Share that link, and we really appreciate it. The on-demand content's there, and then obviously the show has been going every other week. So if you like it, share it. We appreciate your engagement in the show. Last question here, potentially, as they come in. What are the best podcasts you'd recommend listening to in regards to sales and cold calling? 30 Minutes to President's Club is probably one of the best podcasts on sales that I've come across. Outside of that, Alex Hormozy has a podcast. I think it's called The Game, where he does have some content. It's mostly entrepreneurial stuff, but he does have some sales content in there. And I think it's probably one of the best. He's one of the best content producers to help you think about more about building businesses, but there's a lot of sales stuff in there. His YouTube channel has a playlist section where you can go in and find sales content. Highly recommend that. And then I have a podcast that is literally my book. If you haven't come across it yet, Outbound Sales No Fluff. This book is at the very, very beginning is the podcast. So I read it, I have interviews, and then there's like a ton of episodes now which actually have real live cold calls. So if you like listening into real calls, there's call reviews and coaching. So if you haven't checked that out, and then of course the Revenue Champions podcast is a great one too. But 30 Minutes to President's Club is probably the best I've seen for sales, and they have great content on cold outbound. What's your recommended case between touch points? So great question. Cadence sequences are kind of a crock of, we'll keep it PG here. The way a lot of people talk about it. The way that you ought to think about it is the very first cadence or touch point that you should create for yourself is to take a record for the very first time, and you're going to call every single phone number you can find for that person. You're going to email that person, and you're going to see if they're active on social. And while you're doing this is buckets. It's also in my book, chapter 6 of my book, but you're going to figure out every single phone. What I want to look at when I'm calling the phone for the very first time is, does it get to them? Of course, if it gets to them, they're going to pick up and you're going to follow up accordingly. Or if not them, does it get to a working voicemail? It needs to get to a working voicemail. If it doesn't get to them or their voicemail, you probably shouldn't call it again. That includes, customer service lines, etc. Okay. Gatekeepers that don't transfer, it's not likely to. So that's the phone. For email, make sure it delivers. Ideally, you're looking for opens so that when you follow up, you can be more personalized, add some videos, other content, etc. if they're an opener. For social, you see if they're active. Are they actually there and engaging? So that's the very first day. All those channels, and what you're doing is channel validating. Next, you want to start to split out that data into phone, email, social, and any blend. So if they're channel validated, meaning I know it gets to a working voicemail, I know that they open their email, I know they're active on social, you're going to check all those boxes. And like every other day, over 5 business days, you're going to work the following cadence. Assuming you have a working phone, you're not going to do anything else anymore besides call over 5 business days. If you call 5 business days and you can wait 2 days in between, 80% of the people that are likely to pick up will pick up within 5 attempts. Now, once you've gone through the phone, you have other channels. You can start to add email and social, voicemail, etc. But start with phone and just call. Email, social, no phone. Then you could do a cadence. I'm not an expert in those cases, but some guru will tell you what to do with that. But generally, wait a couple days between sends. And what I do know for outbound is that cold email, cold LinkedIn, they can work for certain segments, but I'm more of a phone person. And so that's how I run my cadence. And generally, over 90% of all outbound conversations start with a phone call first, even if it's supplemented by email and social. And when you split the data out, there's pretty much no impact on the email touching the phone. So call first before you add those. It'll save a lot of time, energy, and effort.